Byron York is chief political correspondent for Washington Examiner. Jonathan Turley is a law professor at George Washington University, and they both join us tonight. Professor Turley, first to you. Why not just say we want to impeach the president? We think he's committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Here, they do think that. Why should that be embarrassing? It's a constitutional procedure.
Well, they certainly should be open about if that is their motivation. And there's no question that the preferred route for the Constitution is to have a trial in the Senate after impeachment in the House,
right?
To have that decision. You can always still impeach someone once they are removed from office. There is an ongoing academic debate whether a sitting president can be indicted, but most prosecutors yield to the impeachment process.
I mean, there's no debate over what's the most democratic mechanism for dealing with a president who's done something wrong. It's by using the representatives that voters elected, correct?
Right, that's the preferred way. I mean, the fact is that the framers gave us a process by which we could first impeach and then remove a president.
Right.
And you, as long as you can prove high crimes and misdemeanors. Clearly, some Democratic members are running on that. I don't see the problem, frankly, with Trump also running on that. I think that for Trump to say, look, this is about my impeachment, I have no problem with that, because obviously that is an underlying narrative for the other side. But I think what will have to happen first is Mueller will have to issue a report, and then if Congress changes hands, particularly the House, you could very well see an impeachment process.
So, Byron, the question of the subpoena, we saw yet another piece of information leaked in the press recently that the Mueller people are considering subpoenaing the president. The White House is saying on background, we may reject that. Where does it stand?
That's where it stands right now. We don't know if Mueller is really going to do this. We have never had this come to a conflict in history. The Nixon case was about subpoenaing documents, about evidence, not actually testimony. With Bill Clinton, Ken Starr subpoenaed Bill Clinton, and then they worked something out so that Ken Starr would withdraw the subpoena while Bill Clinton testified. But he did get a few things that you would not get if you went in front of a grand jury. He got to keep his lawyers in the room with him. He did it on video. He didn't go to a grand jury room, and the time was limited. So, on the other hand, he actually did testify. I think what you're seeing right now with this case is that Trump has realized, perhaps lately, that this is more of a political fight. This is an impeachment fight more than anything. So while his lawyers talk about whether a president can or cannot be subpoenaed or called to testify, Rudy Giuliani, who's really more of a spokesman right now, and others are working to discredit the independent counsel because, or the special counsel in this case, because if it does come to the House, and by the way, the reason Democrats aren't doing this now is because they're a minority in the House of Representatives.
Well, sure, but they're also not talking about it. Most of them. I mean, some fringe members are.
Remember the 2006 example when George W. Bush's numbers were just terrible. The Iraq War was going terribly. The Democrats were running to try to win Congress in those midterms in 06. A lot of Democrats were talking about impeachment, but the public really didn't want it. Nancy Pelosi came out about this time of the year in 2006 and said impeachment is off the table. Today, though, 71% of Democrats in a recent poll said they want to see Trump impeached if Democrats take the House.
And the leaders know that full well.
So the leaders know that.
Of course, and that's why it's so disingenuous for them to deny it. If you were running the president's legal team, and you should be, I would say, would you allow him to speak to anyone from Robert Mueller's investigation?
You know, look, that's a tough question, but I actually think that he should have taken the deal to go some time ago and sit down. I wrote a column months ago that said it's a good deal if they stick with the 4 categories that Dowd and Ty Cobb negotiated. Could you prepare the president for that? I think you could. And I think that was the quickest way to diffuse this. The question is really the end game. If you basically defy the subpoena, I think that he will lose. The existing case law favors Mueller. And once he wins in that process, you give him a court order where you can negotiate with him, but he's in a much stronger position. He could demand, and a court could very well go along with a conventional grand jury appearance. So the question is, what is the end game that you're trying to lay out? I personally believe the president could sit through it. People keep on saying he's going to be a disaster, he's going to burst into flames. I disagree with that. I've done a lot of depositions that were more complicated than this. this. And I think you could prepare this president for this.
Boy.
And Trump has done a lot of depositions himself.
He has experience on his side, right?
Having interviewed him many times and seen very precise people go to jail.
True.
Having fallen into perjury traps by experts.
Look, there's risks on both sides here. There's no question about it. So there's no risk option. So,
Gentlemen, thank you both very much.
you.
Great to see you.